Hi, folks, and welcome to the Emerging Centers Track call number 45, June 2024. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to be talking about the National AI Research Resource Initiative and having a discussion about what people have been seeing, doing, how they've been getting involved. First off, I'll do a little bit of an intro on the Campus Research Computing Consortium. This is an organization that advances research by improving the effectiveness of research computing and data professionals, including such areas as career development, how we deliver services and provide resources for researchers. This is the Emerging Centers Track call, which is sort of for people who are getting a program off the ground or working to reach out and recruit people to find out easier ways to get their research done. We're part of a track of sort of an ongoing conference of monthly calls, including researcher-facing, systems-facing, data-facing, and strategy and policy-facing. In addition to the tracks, there are a set of research groups that are getting particular topics worked on for CARC. There's the RCD Nexus, as well as some working groups on professionalization, the capabilities model, and career arcs. And finally, there's the operations group of CARC, which sort of supports us all and helps us get these calls together and keeps us pointed in the right direction. So if you'd like to join, you can find out more on carc.org. You can sign in on our document, and there's also an email list if this is the first time that you've been involved. Just wanted to welcome folks and also say that if you're coming to PERC 24 in July, we have Birds of a Feather session there where we'll be discussing a little bit more about what we've done so far, what we're interested in providing moving forward, and what you folks, the members who are showing up on calls and have an interest in these topics would like to see more of, where we could explore and do some more things. So if you're coming to PERC, look for that opportunity. If you're not coming to PERC, you can send Patrick Clemens, my co-chair, or myself, Rich Knepper, an email. We're happy to take your recommendations and comments and criticisms, whatever you got. Send it our way, and we can have a further discussion and broaden where the track is going and what's possible. So I'm gonna stop sharing, and we can move to just a little bit of discussion. The way we'd sort of set the stage is this National AI Research Resources has sort of taken flight. You know, they've had, I think they're in their second round of allocations. They've put together support from a lot of the national supercomputing centers to provide resources. They've got the names of a lot of big movers and shakers in industry associated with it. And they have a promise of a considerable amount of funding to support it moving forward. So what we wanted to do was provide a little bit of a forum for people to discuss if they've been able to take advantage of NAIRR so far, if they have any pointers or any comments on it, any thoughts about what the available resources look like, what they'd like to see different, perhaps. And if anyone's been involved in trustworthy AI as part of NAIRR. So that's just to sort of set the stage. I know that NSF has provided a couple of webinars on the pilot project, on the overall project. Dan Stanzione, I've seen, has provided a lot of great background and was part of the initial sort of group setting up the report, and has had, he's always got something entertaining to say about things. But if there's folks who have questions or other things they'd like to bring forward, we'd love to hear them, love to discuss them. And if you're just joining us, please join the call doc and sign in. So I'll sort of prompt. I also had as a thesis advisor someone who was happy to sit quietly until things got really uncomfortable. So I could employ that tactic as well. Um, but one of the things it seems, at least in some of the talks we've seen by Katie and Antipas and others about NAIRR, is that we're seeing resources that are kind of similar to what is available through Access, but the idea is that there's maybe access to certain ones that are not quite the same, and also that the allocations process is being sort of refitted and working a little bit differently than might be expected. How do you think that might impact uptake? Are you seeing people looking for information about how it works or how to get involved? Have folks been engaged in any of the allocations process so far? I also came in hopes of hearing what other people are doing, Dana. I think we're all maybe somewhat lined up at the starting line and looking for the person that's going to like start this race off in some ways. The other thing that I've seen on campus is that it seems like there's unified agreement on the demand for resources, and that there's just not enough. Specifically, there's not enough GPUs around to meet the needs of all the people, um, and particularly in the area where people want to engage in either uh, working on their own foundation model or otherwise modifying an existing one where the training is really computationally expensive, and they need a large amount of resources to get started, and it just appears to really not be available, or not available at a price that researchers have the kind of funds that they can manage. So it seems like we're looking for a use case in some ways, and trying to figure out who can we bring to this project and have support some of the activities there. And what my center has really tried to do is to emphasize, we have some expertise. Obviously, this is brand new in a lot of different ways, but we're happy to help people figure out ways to be more efficient, identify issues, and kind of hammer them out. And so we're sort of waiting in readiness to see that use case cross the line here at our institution. I don't know about other folks.
Hello, Richard.
Hi, Toga.
Yeah, hi. I would like to add something. Our students generally they don't know how to use the data centers. Even they don't know if they exist or not.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm trying to show the centers. For example, I am at Arkansas Tech University. We have only one data center at University of Arkansas, and they also allow to us and our students to use their systems to run our algorithms remotely on their clusters. So for example, we can maybe define regional data centers. We can maybe distribute flyers for especially AI-based students and classes and maybe instructors, because our daily computers, they don't work for our heavily algorithms and heavily matrix multiplications. So we need to, I think, prepare flyer uh, uh, for all students and instructors, maybe on the internet. Yeah, they want to do something, but they don't have hardware-based, actually excellent hardware-based GPUs, CPUs, maybe supercomputers, and they generally give up.
Yeah, I think that, an awareness of the resources available has really sort of been challenge number one out of the gate,
Yes.
and to
Yeah.
let people know what's out there and what they can use, and to make sure that their perceptions of what it requires to use it really is online with reality. You know, a lot of people, I think Elizabeth, you were chatting about allocations, and I know I was involved in the Exceed project and have been tangentially involved in the Access project. You know, that's an allocations process. You have to, you have to do a little work to move things forward. But I think sometimes people get the idea that it's a real heavyweight thing you have to do in order to get those resources. But considering what you need to do and the scale of what's available, it's you know it's and the resources that are available to sort of help make those requests. I think it's you sort of need to walk people through the process, make sure that it's not scary,
Yes.
and figure things out. I think one of the questions that I've got around this is this is going to be a big investment and it's going to make an AI resource available. I'm really curious about what kind of training and onboarding capabilities there are to help people understand, not just like that 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 it's there. So that's sort of step one. And the second step is, how do you make use of it effectively, and how do you get, like you said, you've got complex matrix multiplication models that you're trying to follow, or different kind of algorithms that you're trying to pursue, and like how do you get those to run effectively on a resource that's brand new to you as a user, right? And transport your work into that place and make sense of it. It's not clear to me what the training and support capabilities are going to be of this resource, and I've been trying to sort of parse that and understand a little bit better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. And thank you for your all contributions.
Yeah. So, Richard, you mentioned on the use cases, and that was the one big thing why I think I joined the call, because like I think we all are in the same situation where people are interested in doing AIs, but there is no clear like what are the use cases, what's the different like how it is different than what we are supporting right now, because a lot of it is to me it's like we already provide set of support. Okay, there may be need for different type of resources, but I think without understanding what the use cases are, it's hard to provide that service. And the other thing which you really touched on is what, from our staff perspective, what we need to be ready, like what our staff need to learn, and what are the resources available at like national level, which can benefit the staff and our so that we can help our researchers. And it's pretty, so far to me it's not clear, because a lot of it is hype, and a lot of it like we are trying to figure out what is the reality and how we can actually support the reality.
Yeah, agreed. I wonder if it's, for our center, I think we've sort of had a similar type of dynamic just with cloud-based research, where we have people who are excited. Sometimes they talk to somebody from Amazon before they even talk to us, and they're ready to go with something. And then it's, we need to figure out a good way to support it broadly. And how do we get our people to just have the understanding that can help guide folks either on, how to get their code running effectively, or just how to be efficient and not run into some of the horror stories that people have run into. And so we've tried to approach it of like integrating folks with projects as they come in, and making it clear that it's a little bit of an like we have people who are keen, they want to get started, they're really interested in understanding how things work. We've used the Internet 2 class workshops that have been really helpful in training folks up. I think that's a model that might be beneficial in the AI space. Dana, I don't know if you can relay that back to the Internet 2 people. But having something like that, like a workshop of like, okay, how do we get people started with supporting things? then they're able to convey, some of the concerns on, and that's also, a workshop like that is a good place to sort of gather those, use cases and experiences, and then you can sort of either figure out what sort of common types they might have, or common characteristics, and then apply them more broadly, I think. I think the one of the tensions that we've seen is that there's a set of folks who maybe have a methodology worked out, and they really just want to, they want to have an AI resource to interpret radiology scans, or they want to, they have some kind of workflow and pipeline, and they're really looking for the hardware to do it. And then there's folks who are really looking to explore something sort of qualitatively different, and they don't know they don't know where that might go. And that I think is where it really becomes sort of a co-learning exercise, where you really have to work together to figure things out as they go. And usually people are pretty open, collaborative work in that way. But it's a little bit different approach than just, I have a pipeline, or I have a fixed problem, point me at the resources, right?
Hi, Jerry Waldron. I'm from Maryland, and excuse me, I'm from a research network, MD-REN. We're an RD, and we finished a NSF grant last fall. And not to get down the infrastructure, achievements there, but what our takeaway was that we had increased throughput for a lot of the smaller campuses and research centers. We set up large file transfer utilities, things like that. But what we really learned is that particularly the smaller campuses, but some of the big ones too, their problem is, well, step one is infrastructure, I guess. But once you have that, there's a need for somebody to help. And I see the heads nodding. And particularly at the smaller campuses, I was CIO at 2 different campuses here in Maryland. And even though we have HPC facilities at 2 of the larger campuses, they don't have enough people, or the right people, to support researchers as data scientists or sysadmins or whatever. So what we're going to do, or what we're planning on doing, is a needs assessment, hopefully this coming academic year, that will involve visiting each of the 12 campuses, talking to researchers, finding out whether their issues are people problems or infrastructure problems or training problems or all of those things, and then bringing it back, to our system leaders and see what we can put in place. I'm envisioning some sort of a shared service initially. I have seen a number of situations where smaller campuses have written grants to build small HPC environments that they can no longer support or replace. So it seems like a shared service, at least for us in our state, might make some sense. But we're planning on doing this needs assessment, and also phase 2 of that will be to complete cyber infrastructure plans with each campus so that they can pursue NSF CC Star or some other program if that's the way it goes. But in general, we're seeing, at least initially, a pretty positive response from researchers, just about the idea of having a shared service that they could call, and that would be the middle person between them and one of the HPC clusters that already exists. So that's kind of what we're thinking about. We're working on the statement of work of what the needs assessment would be right now. In fact, I'm looking for someone to actually carry it out and visit the campuses and do focus group type conversations with researchers and learn a lot, hopefully.
That sounds like a really exciting project. I think that idea of a shared model for expertise is something that could really open a lot of doors for campuses that don't necessarily have a lot of capacity, but they have, they got bright people asking important research questions, and they sort of need someone who's computationally experienced, shall we say, to help them on the way. And so that sharing model, I think, is something that could really open the door to a lot of campuses and improve the activity. There's resources out there, right? And it's a matter of how do you get people to that activation energy to be able to take advantage of them in some ways.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I recently learned was that well, I was thinking more in terms of researchers, but there also is apparently a need for platforms to do AI instruction. And faculty are asking questions like, where can I get the training? I don't have, I mean, I could go ahead and maybe figure this out on my own, but I also teach and I also do research. So again, they're at least in the early conversations about some level of training. And if there's something out there, you mentioned internet too, if there's something out there that I can point them to now, that would be helpful. But I think we're going to need to do something in a more structured way.
Yeah, research and instruction piece is really starting to come out for us as well. We have a new campus CIO, and he came to us and said, well, I know that this researcher is working with you guys, and he's also providing class resources to be able to run notebooks and give people access to a fair amount of hardware just through that. How are you going to meet those needs? And I'm like, I'm a research center, like I don't have an instructional component, so I have to work across the aisle to find the instructional technologies people that are willing to support it and say, okay, well, we can provide the experience to help with some of those pieces, but you've got the instructional technology portion to make it go. And I wonder if other folks are sort of bridging that gap in different ways. It's been on my mind a little bit since this came up. So thanks for elevating that, Jerry. Just out of curiosity, out of the folks on the call, do folks have an additional instructional component as well as a research component to what they do? Does it cover whatever?
I can go ahead and then tell a couple things. Can you guys see me?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I am Zekai Orals, and then I work at UW-Madison, Division of Information Technology. I am in the Research Cyber Infrastructure Group. One of the things we do with the cloud, like really training and then just like really getting like people into the cloud. We have an office hour from the cloud team. And then also like our team has started something else, like cloud community at the UW-Madison. We get basically every other month we get together and then just like really 1 hour and then just like bringing the people in, just like really getting used to the cloud and then also like really how we do like some of the things in the cloud. I think that's really one method we are trying to do. And I think also like in our group, maybe just like sometimes like talks to the departments, and then we bring in like our group like just expertise, and then just like saying, okay, like everything might be really little difficult, and then I think we are here to help you, and then we are a partner with you. Nothing like really basically lecturing or anything like that. One other thing, like at the university we have done, our group has done, actually, we supply 5 or 6 licenses like to researcher for a cloud group. That's also like really has been really great. And then people are trying to learn the cloud and then other stuff there. It's just like that's been great that.
Thanks, Sakai.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, I can speak to the University of Kentucky. I'm in the Center for Computational Sciences. When it comes to education, learning, and teaching, a matter of fact, earlier today, I had a Zoom meeting with the director of our Center for the Enhancement of Teaching and Learning, or Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching. It's called CELD. Anyway, Trey Conister is the director. He and I just had an hour-long conversation, focused on AI, training, educational needs, interest growing. Their center is getting a lot of requests in that specific area. And of course, our center, being the Center for Computational Sciences, we supply the resources and the technical support, for the faculty that are getting into more of the tools having to do with AI. The other thing that we've done, as a matter of fact, we did yesterday, is we had a Zoom call with researchers from across the Commonwealth of Kentucky. We have had a Kentucky Cyber Team grant, which is ending, but we are going to continue the researcher community focus. And in yesterday's Zoom meeting, we had presentations on LLM and RAG techniques. So, we are always attempting to offer technical discussions and training, with these new tools. So definitely a lot of interest across all application spaces.
Yeah, it seems to be, the hype cycle isn't done with us yet, right? There's a little bit of maybe reality setting in some areas, but there's still a lot of demand and a lot of people looking for areas where they can sort of push things forward and develop some interesting applications and research out of it.
I'm just wondering, listening to some of this, and I'm just wondering if are these sessions recorded that you do on AI? And I mean, I'm just thinking of researchers and department chairs of computer science that I've talked to, and again, I their time is limited, and I think access to any training or thought-provoking discussion that might help them, themselves in terms of professional development, but maybe even, and I'm thinking in terms of like a department meeting or something like that, where they could develop a strategy. Right now, it seems like there's a lot of one-offs of faculty trying to do their thing and pick up the information they can, but there's not really a decent place. It's kind of all over the place. And particularly from the academic perspective, like the people on this call, as opposed to, a corporate perspective, which is good too, but in a different way.
Yeah, we did not record, for instance, yesterday's Zoom meeting. We have in the past. That one was not. The other thing, NVIDIA is definitely interested and offers a lot of training online. And if you're acquiring their technology, we've found them to be very supportive and involved, and happy to give technical talks and workshops. So NVIDIA is pretty good about offering support from that perspective.
We're also Zakai has been contributing some of the recorded talks, and I've also linked to our Cornell YouTube channel, where we've got a scientific training series that we've been recording. I think we're at 4 semesters of providing this now, so we've got a fair amount of videos there too. Not all AI, but we do have some AI topics.
Thanks a lot. I'll check those out.
I'll try to get those pasted in the document if I can get copy paste out of Zoom working correctly.
I'm just wondering, are other folks on the call? I can't see heads nodding because they're all fixed pictures. I'm just kind of wondering if other people are from other campuses. I can see a few names are experiencing the same need for maybe even some sort of an assessment to determine what the needs are, so it can be delivered in an efficient way. I know a lot of state schools in Maryland are under some budget constraints right now. And there's a lot of conversation about shared services in a number of areas, not just IT or networking or whatever. But when I talk to vendors, because I manage a REN, I mean, the cost of not only buying this stuff, but then supporting it is gigantic. And I don't know. I'm just curious about what some of the other folks are experiencing in terms of a need for infrastructure, but also a need for training or some additional support so that researchers have somebody to call.
Again, I can comment here in Kentucky. We have obviously a lot of other institutions, Western Kentucky University, Northern Kentucky University, Eastern Kentucky University, Murray, Morehead State, and the University of Louisville. Really, UK and Louisville are the only two institutions with any substantial research computing activities. And the University of Kentucky, through our cyber team grant, we use that to enhance our support, our staffing, and then we've opened our resources to any researcher across the Commonwealth. And so we're supporting, research computing for these other institutions. And that seems to have worked. The vast majority of, the faculty's time at the other smaller institutions are educational focused, but now, as we all know, data science and AI can be computationally intensive just in the area of supporting your educational interest. So that's definitely putting a strain on more requests for use of our systems, but we're doing the best that we can.
So I have a question related to that. So in general, are folks also investing time in coming up with maybe training modules or workshops that are geared more towards optimization and really, performance boosting with Gen AI or AI tools? Because a lot of times, even if we have resources, we may not be utilizing it properly because we haven't really, done that performance analysis. So are we thinking about having those focus workshops so that we can also communicate to our user community?
So this is something on our mind. I don't think we're at the workshop level. What we've really been trying to figure out is how do we successfully provide resources efficiently. So the case that I'm thinking of specifically is, I have a co-provider who's got a cluster with GPUs, and his users will issue jobs that take up the entire node in order to use a single GPU, and he's really struggling to balance utilization in an effective way. And so we've been working with SCED-MD to try and figure out, okay, how do we at least break it up at the node level? Then we can eventually look at using some of the NVIDIA technologies to provide pieces of GPUs where that's effective and have it scheduled. We're looking at bringing up a resource in our on-prem cloud that will have better fractional usage. So we're trying to get to that point. My reflection on it is we have, we got into this by people looking for resources, right? They had GPUs and they were like, well, this fits this problem and it's cheap at the time. You know, now we're in a place where those resources are expensive again. And we haven't got to the point where we're really eking out the best performance out of those things. We just keep pushing the hardware hotter and faster. And so I think your question is really on target. There's got to be sort of a search for some improved techniques that are going to make better use of the hardware moving forward.
Yeah, because my other concern is, in general, I mean, there are number of use cases in the AI space itself that might easily be, executed on, say, simple V100s or A100s instead of even thinking about H100s. And then if the user is not informed about it, it's a waste resource, right? So, coming from that side itself, there's of course optimization, which could be at the software level, could be at the code level, but then there is also awareness of what hardware to even use and how to get started with benchmarking for those.
Sure. Yeah, Elizabeth, it looks like has got some pretty good input in the chat. So Perk I think is going to be sort of hot for this, and the ACES workshop that's co-located. So I think some work is getting done. Yeah.
And Rich, you mentioned about SCED-MD. So all of us, or a lot of us, use Slurm, and Slurm integration with GPUs is minimum. So that's what we are actually trying to push with them. And I think that's where we, as a community, need to. We even have allocated some funds to like sponsor some development. But I think as a community, we need to communicate that like in GPU level monitoring or like control in Slurm should be developed, because that's one thing which it's hard to control memory and all those things right now using Slurm, and that's where the resource resources are not properly allocated.
I just want to jump in and say ditto. We recently brought online a 5-node DGX cluster with 40 H100s, and the optimal use of that machine is yet to be obtained. So we have a lot of users experimenting, and we're not using it optimally, that's for sure. But we're learning, I mean, we are learning, and we're trying to push, we have another just GPU cluster, that has the P100s, A100s, or whatever. And for those users who are not optimally using the DGXs, we're pushing them back onto the older GPU clusters and using the DGX 5-node system for those that really could expand and use multiple nodes effectively. But it's painful. We're learning.
So in this, yeah, go ahead, Namindra.
Yeah, only like request just on follow up on this is like whatever you are experiencing, what are the gaps? If I think that can be submitted as a request to SCED-MD, it will be useful to make a case that yes, this need to be prioritized. Yeah, Manswita. Yeah.
So I just kind of also was curious on a slightly adjacent topic related to AI tools on the cluster, which is sort of around security. So do we have any processes, protocols for monitoring that? We can't stop users from downloading and installing whatever AI software is or tool that is needed for their research, but a lot of times, whatever data level security that comes with needs to be conveyed maybe. And also sometimes, inadvertently, they may end up putting some buggy files on the cluster. So have we thought about that? Do we have any conversations around that? I'm just curious to know.
I think lamentation we have, but we haven't had a lot of conversations. So we see these things. It's doesn't seem to be working right. We're still scratching our heads about how to guide users to get better performance, better usage. That's where we're seeing it. Like, we've identified the problem and we're not denying it, but we're still scratching our heads about how to guide people forward.
Thanks.
I guess I'll chime in with from a infrastructure and space point of view. Just turning some of these systems on is a huge problem. The power requirements, if we kitted out a rack right now with DGXs or just a fully outfitted rack full of H100 nodes, that we would get 2 of those in our entire machine room. And we don't have access to any, we don't have access to water cooling or anything like that to deal with the heat that's coming off these things either. Just density is becoming, density always increases, but it's becoming a bit problematic the rate at which it's doing so.
Yeah, we have similar concerns. Cornell is right on the side of a big lake, which is really nice for cooling, but our data center is about 50 years old, to be honest with you. And having that kind of capability is while we can fit a couple things in, we're really having to have some hard conversations to figure out what makes sense and how we can grow.
Yeah. And you've got people who want, all the new shiny things, and sometimes they might even have money to pay for the new shiny things, but the institution, like your center level, I can't turn that on. You can buy it and bring it here, but I can't turn that system on. You'll brown out the room.
And that's what like we are facing again. So Harvard has a shared data center with the MIT and other institutions. It's pretty modern, but I'll tell you, we like even in that data center we are facing challenges. But right now we are supporting a institute who bought 400 H100s, and the amount of power it need in a row is enormous. And and we do have liquid cooling and other things, but it's a common problem. Even if you will have modern data centers or resources, because the amount of growth in this area, and we are discussing the next generation stuff, which is going to take 3 times more power than a traditional node or rack used to. So it's not just a like space problem, it's a space, power, cooling, all those things together, and all those things drive investment, like where this additional money is come from.
Yeah. And like we were having a conversation with I believe it was Vertiv, one of the folks who sell you all your power gear and everything, and we told them we needed to be looking at, okay, we might need to kit out a rack with we might need to be kitting out at 100 kW per rack or more, and they just kind of looked at us like, what are you talking about? And I was like, no, that's very achievable right now with some of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah, it is real. I can show you, like right now, I think this week we are doing a burn-in for our H100 rack, and I think it's 110 when it's all like when you run HPL on it.
Yeah, and the next generation is going to be even more.
Yep. We saw 90 on A100 rack with 144 A100. So it's becoming a challenge. Or it is a challenge.
Start running a power plant off the waste heat off these things.
Yeah,
And
we're,
again, I just want to add, this is all liquid cool. I don't know what will be with the air cooled stuff. I don't think you can have this much density.
Yeah, we can put 2 of those nodes with air cooling. Two, I think they're quad H100 nodes. And any more than that, and we're starting to like melt the plastic on around this stuff.
Jumping in from a little bit of a different perspective. So formerly I worked at 2 National Science Foundation centers, but currently represent a climate science research group at UCSD. And our big problem in the space is I'm sympathetic with the time to deployment. I'm sympathetic to the training. When we approach a new AI model, we have about a year before someone else beats us to it. So if we're waiting on resources, if we're waiting on systems, we have a very short timeline now for our research to get out the door compared to historically how long you maybe had 3 or 4 years if you had a good idea previously. Now and the large other centers we compete against for funding and ideas and recognition, they have large systems available. They have the latest and greatest, and because these are the large national weather centers. So that's our big problem. I'm going to guess a lot of the other research groups in the various disciplines have the same issue, where you just don't have the time to wait. I mean, if we have to apply for something and it takes 6 months to get an allocation on a system, that's a lot of lost time. So the time to turn around, and that's NAIRR was extremely interested to us because it seemed like their process for proposals and all that kind of recognized a bit of that, or at least streamlined it quite a bit. So yeah, definitely a kind of growing issue. And I've deployed a lot of hardware, so I'm sympathetic to the time it takes to deploying it. We just bought a brand new cluster. So that's a 1.5-year long process almost, but it's something to kind of be aware of. And Jerry, kind of going to your needs assessment. If you do that with my group, if it took a year to do that needs assessment, you'd have to restart the needs assessment immediately because our needs would have changed drastically in a year. So the total thing is valid and worthwhile, and especially around the needs for training, but the needs for systems and hardware, that's I mean, you almost have to do that every 3 months with groups that are doing large AI related and machine learning related research. And the other big thing is, finding the folks to do training. And we're lucky that we partner with San Diego Supercomputing Center, who has a great stable of AI researchers that we can call on and just pay their salary, and they're available to us. But they are hard to find, and especially when you're competing against companies with much deeper pockets, finding and hiring those folks is really, really tough. So I mean, we've tried to do it and just got nowhere. So we just are lucky that our partners have it. So yeah, just a few thoughts from a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I think our perspective on the needs assessment is that it, and I can tell you're in a different ballgame in terms of research level and funding and competition. What I'm thinking more in terms of the institutions that, Maryland and like a lot of states, the schools are either haves or have-nots, and there's lots of have-nots. So, and my concern for some of those schools is that it's one thing if they're not a research institution to begin with, but if they can't compete in AI instruction either, the students aren't going to go there. They're going to go to the 2 or 3 larger institutions that, are already in, somewhat reasonable, although always moving. They're in a better position to even offer instructional programs at the undergraduate level. So, the smaller institutions, we have 4 historically Black institutions in our state. They're just not going to be able to compete in AI instruction in addition to research. The big schools, I can't say that they're well off either, like College Park, maybe the medical school in Baltimore, but you know, they're kind of struggling too. They've spent all their money on infrastructure, and they have some pretty impressive clusters, but they're in terms of the, you know, the support, it's hard to come back.
Gerald said that actually we partnered with a research group out of Maryland, in part because we're so hungry for talent and folks that even though we're a West Coast center, whose researches West Coast weather phenomenon, we saw basically just giving access to our people and our resources to folks actually out of College Park. That was a win-win for us because we got them researching West Coast weather and phenomenon that our funders loved that we did. And so it was relatively low cost to us, some people time, some compute resources. But we got to say, hey, we now have people on the East Coast who historically never cared about what we're researching to improve our research at a cost that to our funders, look how cheap this was. And so those partnerships could be, there's a lot of groups like ours who are so desperate for talent and researchers that that might be another way for those small, the have-not universities to just make those connections with larger groups and say, I got this talented student. I have, and they want to do research, what can we do? It's there's not a ton of groups like this, but they're out there, and they want to find any talent they can anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm listening to you all, and again, I represent a number of state institutions. Again, 3/4 of them are not research ones, and it seems I've been a CIO for 20 years. Okay, so I'm looking at delivering infrastructure, delivering support at the most reasonable cost. It does not seem reasonable at all for all of these institutions to try to build their own clusters, staff them, support them, power them, all of things that everybody has said on this call. So I've, and I know, and you're probably more familiar with the PATH program that's out of the University of Wisconsin than I am. But some of the things they're doing collaboratively, most of our faculty probably don't even know about. So it's really providing them with connections, being the matchmaker, if you will, to let them know what is available, and then kind of guiding them through actually getting connected and to leverage other people's resources. Why do it yourself for most of them anyway? They don't have the bench strength to do it. I mean, I'm kind of wondering why, I'm again looking at some of the schools here, why, and maybe it will happen, that we end up with a relatively modest number of, supercomputing centers through higher education at different places in the country, and we all contribute to them, and they, we all use them. I mean, it's a moving target, and on so many levels, and it just seems, Patrick, as you said, you're constantly chasing, building, rebuilding, expanding. Yeah, it's a bit nuts.
Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for this conversation. We're coming around to the top of the hour. I really appreciate everybody contributing and providing their ideas. Patrick, I think that spanning activity of bringing in folks from other sites to find that talent is a really good demonstration. And Jerry, I appreciate you looking for a shared model for support, because I think the expertise is in short supply, right, in a lot of areas, and trying to figure out ways to bridge across is a real challenge that I think folks are looking for. I do want to be conscious of folks' time since we're coming up to the top of the hour. Next month, in July, we are having Alex Feltis and I think Jonathan Woodard present on how they're using generative AI in their own research areas. So we'll be sort of extending this direction for some more focused talks. I know Alex does a lot in terms of building up his research and preparing things, and also engaging with his students. And then Jonathan here at Cornell is doing a document search and summarization tool that I think is pretty interesting. So we'll have a couple of use cases to bring and have a discussion about. I'm looking forward to seeing folks there. All right, thanks again, and we'll be in touch.